From the high plains of the Midwest, I bid you good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever your time zone might be. My nod to the late and great Art Bell. I'm Keith Sharp.
And I'm G. Dressel.
And we welcome you to Life After Life, a paranormal webcast where we talk about the paranormal, UFOs, or the unexplained. And the biggest question of them all, what happens when we die? Stay tuned. Turn that off. Hey, hello. How many people we got out there today? 15. All right.
No, I think we're up to, I think it's at 65.
Oh, cool. That's even better. How's everybody doing? Good? Put it in the chat. Garrett, how's your week been?
Hey, good. I thought about something today.
What's that?
Can we set up a P.O. box so people can send us stuff?
No one does that anymore, Garrett.
No. Because
everything's email.
No. There's somebody from Wisconsin, and I really want some awesome cheese.
You want some cheese?
Can you send cheese to a P.O. box, though?
Yeah. Who is it as Kay's creation? I don't think Kay's going to send you some cheese through the mail.
Okay, well, whatever.
But, you know. Oh, and I was just telling Garrett, one of my ghost stories I don't know if any of you guys listen to real ghost stories online, but one of my stories made it on there. I was so excited.
It's creepy. It's real.
Yeah, well, if you listen to the Halloween, go back and listen to the Halloween show, and I tell you my story. But I told the most scary story, and it got on there. It was so cool. I listened to it like 3 times.
Are you going to send me the link later?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, I will. All right, well, tonight, guys, I don't think it's going to be a 2-hour show.
We say that every show.
We do say that, but I just don't. There's just not a whole lot to go over.
Well, I'm starting to think no one cares what we think anyways.
Yeah. All right. Good night. We get up and just leave.
Hey, we got to throw in that Art Bell part real fast for our 65.
Oh, yeah. For our rule that we have now, Art's going to let you know what that rule is, and it's...
no bad language.
So I don't mind if you call, and that's another thing, remind me about calling, is if you say a few cuss words, that's fine, but let's not MFN and let's not F every other word, things like that. Let's try to keep it clean. Like I said, I've got some grandchildren, and sometimes they watch the show, and they're kind of small. Well, and they're going, what kind of grandparent are you letting me watch true crime? But... No.
Hey, what about when because Oklahoma, we finally got some snow, and you built a snowman, and how old is she now? 5?
Yeah, so I built a snowman, or actually my kids built a snowman, and they put a jacket on it and a hat, and my granddaughter looks at it and goes, Papa, that looks like the bridge guy. And now when I pick her up from daycare, when we're driving home, she'll see some guy walking down the street, Papa, I think that's the bridge guy. And then she said, I got to say this because this is cute. I said, don't worry, honey. I said, I'll beat up the bridge guy. And she goes, you're too old. And then she said, and you got too many boo-boos. It sucks about that is she's right.
She's not right.
I'm too old. All right, so let's get in with it. It's 7:20 here in a fine state of Oklahoma.
52 degrees.
52 degrees, cloudy skies. All right, so... we're going to talk about, we're going to start with, was this murder random? And you guys can put your answers there, what you think.
Motives.
And then we're going to talk about, we're going to be talking about motives as well. But like I said, I love Tim Koval, love his stuff. But I just don't think it's random. I think there was way too much thought put into this for this to be random. If it would have been random, I'm thinking if I did something like that, I would just put sweatpants on, a sweat jacket with a hoodie, ski mask. I'm in, getting my stuff and getting out. And the thing about the cash too is maybe I brought that up last week, but what about this isn't the 1800s or even, they're going to keep that cash in a big safe.
I have a safe.
Right. And we talked about,
right.
So looking for cash. And then again, being a Church of Christ, I believe Tim did say that they were somewhat progressive, and I think they had a piano, but you can't take a piano out. And it's not going to be worth getting thrown in possibly prison, for stealing a couple of microphones. There's just not a whole lot of stuff in that church that would have been worth stealing.
Right.
And getting a felony charge.
Well, just all the
breaking and entering.
And if you're going to break in somewhere, you're not necessarily just going to vandalize everything.
Right.
you're going to be just a little bit more careful, I think.
Right. And I think that was his whole deal is, or she, busting windows, at one point he or she was trying to pry the door open, make it look like a robbery. And then again, like, why full tactical gear? We talked about
that's definitely my thing too, and we often talk about on the show, Keith, like how kind of lazy we are, like lazy minded at times. Like when we're doing these cases. Hence why there's a lot of reasons why we would never be serial killers, but one reason why
there's a whole lot of reasons, Garrett.
There's a whole lot of reasons, but it takes a lot of effort to do these things, right? And like, so to even put on all that gear, and it's just that's not like a 5-10 minute thing where you're throwing on some tennis shoes, or I mean. You're lacing up. You're putting on a bulletproof vest. A helmet. The mask, and
right.
So this isn't for me. And
I did look up the weight of tactical gear. It's not what you would think. Like even a bulletproof vest with all the little pockets and everything is 2 pounds.
Yeah. Times have changed, man.
I thought it'd be like an 8-pound thing you're lugging around.
Times have changed.
But the thing is, and I hate to say what was smart about her or he. And
I think it's okay for you to say that it was smart because
well, I mean, they thought it out, and for a girl, it's perfect because it covers the hair, and also how the jacket bunches up. Most women have thinner necks than guys, right? When you agree, so you can't even really see the neck of this person.
I know.
So completely cover up the jacket. To me, as I kept looking at that video a little bit more, it looked like it was bunched out a little bit. So what we're seeing where we think this looks like a heavy-set person may not be.
Right.
And there was one, I did listen to his podcast, and he said someone close to the case, and
what's his name?
Yeah, well, it's Paul Holes and Billy Jennings. I love those guys. I love Paul Holes especially. But he was saying someone close to the case was saying that looking at it, they judged this person to be. Now, this is crazy. I don't think I agree with this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. That this person weighed 110 pounds and was 5'7", and he said, Billy Jennings said that this person kept showing in the video, and he said he would do frame by frame, and you see these big spaces within the jacket. So small frame in that. Now, 110 pounds, that would be almost anorexic for a 5'7" girl, wouldn't it?
I mean, I guess.
Would it be really, really thin?
I mean, that would be really hard to make it. I did a Santa Claus thing because Santa couldn't make it.
Yeah, of course,
to the party.
That's right.
And it was actually pretty difficult because I had to add some weight. It wasn't easy to do, and it also wasn't easy to contain, and it wasn't easy to move around. Once I sat down, I didn't get back up. I didn't want to mess. I didn't want things falling out, and
Absolutely. So I mean,
I do find that hard to believe.
Right. So, I mean, and that was our next question was this a man or a woman? And
let's debate it.
Okay. I'll go for a woman. You mean between you and me?
Yeah.
Or that? Okay. So are you you want to say it's a guy?
I'm going to say it's a woman too.
Yeah.
I'm just going to agree with you.
Okay.
I can't, because I told you when I very first watched the footage, as they're walking away, I was like, that's definitely a dude. But then as they're walking at an angle like this towards the camera,
when they're coming towards you, then it's
the hips and the way they were moving. And Pamela brought up a good point about when Robin Williams is
just
teaching.
Call her Pam.
Okay. Can I call you Pamela?
I don't care.
Yeah, that's.
Oh, I thought you wanted him to call you Pammy or Pam.
I'll call you Pam.
Because every time he says Pamela, you start laughing.
Well, she's my Pamela.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's what our grandkids call my wife, Pam. One day we'll get her on.
Did you know I
video.
actually came up with that?
You did.
I did. Yeah, I love that.
We're getting off track.
No, but Pamela brought up a great point about when Robin Williams is trying to teach Nathan Lane it's how to walk like a guy, right? In Birdcage.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what did he say? You got to kind of swing. And so, yeah. And so that, for me, it kind of seems like somebody's trying to replicate. So obviously, they're trying to replicate something.
Trying to walk like a guy.
Well,
right?
The whole thing they're trying to replicate, from the gear to the breaking out the windows to how they're moving, the whole they're replicating something.
Yeah.
So
yeah, absolutely. They're playing policemen,
which we're going to talk about later.
Yeah, which we are going to talk about. We thought
you did.
Yeah, right before the show.
And it's kind of a little bit captivating, honestly.
It's kind of you never know. So number 3. Now let's look at the duck feet, especially with the right foot. This one I can help everybody out with because when I'm not doing unsolved crime and paranormal, I'm a therapist. So
Right.
So there's what we call external rotation with the right foot. It turns out, and
Hey, put your hand where they can see it.
Oh, yeah. It turns out, or just watch the video.
Right.
That's called external rotation in occupational therapy and physical therapy, mainly physical therapy. But
what causes that?
well, that's interesting you say that because I think Tim disagreed with me on that, and he could be absolutely right because the pelvic tilt I saw was really quick. It's called a pelvic tilt. It's when you stand up, and I think I talked about it a little bit last week. People who stand up and they go like this, what happens is the hip flexors, I think they start tightening up. It rotates the femur externally, which when I say externally, I mean out.
Right.
And it causes that if you stand like that too much. So we saw what I thought I saw was a little anterior pelvic tilt.
Okay.
And so that made sense to me. Okay, this is a real condition. So it's maybe a good possibility these shoes aren't big. Plus, let me add this. I had my wife to put on my big hiking boots and walk around the house.
Right.
And
great idea.
Yeah, because I wanted to see, because you would think, well, way to go, Garrett.
God dang it! I love this thing.
I know. Don't worry about that.
Okay.
So I had my wife to walk around in my big shoes to the house. I'm following her. I get in front of her, and her foot never externally rotated or internally rotated either way. It stayed straight. So, So what does my wife do? She stuffs socks in the boots. I'm like, no, honey, that's not the point.
But what was my argument?
Huh?
What was my argument to that?
I don't remember what was your
My argument to that was Pamela is really smart, and she thought, well, this is going, and so if you're going to go through all the trouble.
Yeah, that's true. That's what you're saying.
If you're going to go through all the trouble to put on tactical gear into that, you're probably going to think to put socks in your shoes so you don't. Hey, I got a question for you about the rotational.
See, you are cutting me off just like.
Dude, I'm an a-hole.
I know. Go ahead.
Okay, so well, is there a
now
certain?
I'll lose my thought, and now
No. Is there? This is important. Is there a certain demographic? Like, is it normally elderly people or women or men? Like,
no, I'll tell you this.
How does that occur?
And Tim was, when Tim said, watch that video about people walking, it's very common. And to be quite honest with you, he's absolutely right. It's common. I see that with a lot of my patients. And there's no demographic. I mean, it can be little kids. Sometimes you see kids start out like that, but as they grow and their muscles get a little more, they get stronger.
They start
it goes away. Feet go back in because to treat that, what we do is we have to do hip stretches, flexion, extension exercises. There's some orthotics you can use that slip in, raises the arch of the foot, so it stabilizes the foot.
Okay.
But yeah, to answer your it's all across from 2 years old up to.
I just thought that was
80.
important because I didn't know.
So it is common. So what made me also think, even without the shoe, when I saw that and I saw what I thought was anterior pelvic tilt,
right?
I thought, oh, okay, well that makes sense because that causes external rotation in the foot.
Hey,
I think we do have whoever this perpetrator is. I think they have these two conditions.
Could they have also, because I know when I was in the Army and that was back when they had the BDUs, the green and old school.
All right.
But the boot, you would always get blisters, right?
And tell people what BDU stands for. Remember?
Battle dress uniform.
Right.
Yep.
That's it.
And so, but whenever you get a blister on your foot, you always kind of walk out, right?
Yep.
Another thing that happens is I actually have a Jones fracture right now, and whenever I first did that, the only way that I could get around without crutches or something is by walking with my foot out. So do you think that it could be? Do you think it could be some sort of foot or ankle injury?
Okay, so if I'm looking at this as a therapist, I mean, of course, I would have did a whole lot of testing with them.
Of course.
And so to see this short clip and to see maybe a half of a second of what I thought was an anterior pelvic tilt, there are other conditions that can cause that to happen. Okay, so it could be an injury, just like you said.
Okay.
Guy could have recently had the same type of fracture.
See, that's because when I look at it, I'm like, oh, that's how I was walking.
Yeah, it's not the only
because it's only the right foot for the most part.
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of odd. I thought but so does that happen with what you're talking about, the pelvic tilt thing, or is it both feet?
No, usually it depends. It's more common with the right foot than it is the left foot.
Man, that's interesting.
And it could be which position that when they're pelvis tilts out. 'Cause
Right.
You tend to lean to one side, right? When you do that. So if I lean this way, I'm stretching these muscles.
So you're
here.
overcompensating.
I'm overcompensating. I'm glad you brought that up.
Right.
There's another thing I noticed this guy as a therapist watching him.
Or girl.
Or girl. Yeah. You're absolutely right.
Take a drink. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, take a drink. No, but what I saw is, when he's the Dutch doors, he opens the bottom one, and that's where, I told you I saw the tilt. But when I saw his head move up, it looked like there was some compensation going on, which could mean there was some type of neck injury. He could have some type of back injury. So let me show you what compensation is. Like if I got bad range of motion with my right shoulder, and sometimes you see those people who they do this, when they're trying to reach, they'll always raise their shoulder, and they're trying to compensate for the range of motion to get that reach. So they're moving up. So he kind of did. When I noticed when he looked up, and it was just again
very quick.
He went like that. So it's almost like he used his pec muscles and his back muscles to move his head up instead of just looking up like you would do, which would make me tend to think he may have a neck injury, he or she.
Yep.
Or
which would almost lean towards it being like an elderly kind of like late,
not necessarily,
but you would think that if you have a neck issue, a shoulder issue,
because I've had young guys who I've had young patients who they've done the same thing. It's just, they were in a car accident. They,
I get it.
Maybe the T spine or lower C spine, they hurt it, and so they're compensating. I mean, it's common.
That's true.
With car accidents, falling off a ladder, like your dad today.
Is he okay?
And yeah, he's fine.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So yeah,
that's scary.
Lots of things can cause that.
Okay.
And so anyway, well, there was something else I thought you were getting ready to say.
Well, no. I was just asking about kind of the ins and outs of what would cause that, and trying to dial in a little bit. And seeing if there are other things. And I was curious about the demographics, if it was an age thing. And so you kind of clarified all that. You answered all those questions.
Yeah, absolutely not. I mean, you will see that with older people as bones, like people have fusions and things like that where they've had that surgery back here, where it keeps their necks rigid. And when they look, and also that's another thing, you'll see shoulders move to look, instead of just doing this, because it's called what we call compensation. And so it's very common, and so you can't really determine this person's age by saying, "Oh, anterior pelvic tilt, that's an old person." No,
right?
No. There's guys in their 20s that stand like that, and they've done it for so long that their foot externally starts rotating.
Creature of habit,
or a common accident.
Right.
So, yeah, it's all that stuff. But that was something that I noticed, and so now I guess we're going to get into the motives, and then we'll be done with the show.
Hey, really quick. Ann Lee said,
go ahead, ask it.
Much is made of Randy Beaver's disability. He plays golf. Does that match up? Well, I don't know what specific disability he has.
Randy has a
spondylitis.
I can hear
Ankylosing spondylitis.
Which is in the back up towards the neck. Yeah, he has a condition, which I don't think, as much as I want to say it's Randy, it looks like Randy, and we'll get with that. Yes, this person has some very Compton.
Dude.
Out of Compton. No, but this guy has some of the same posturing, or girl, that I see with Randy. He has the external rotation. Randy has one of the worst anterior pelvic tilts I've ever seen. If you watch him during that thing where he's like this, the guts out. He also has neck injury, which would cause him to compensate to look up. He has everything that I see in this video matches the deficits that I see with Randy and this perpetrator. But we'll get into that.
Yeah, well, and they ask they say he plays golf. Does that match up? And you can
have golf. You can have golf injury. Usually, it's the golf injuries I see are lower back.
Right. Tiger Woods had really bad lower back issues.
And wrist problems and forearm problems.
Well, and I was going to say, I've seen
tennis elbow. They have golfer's elbow. Same thing. Where those tendons tighten up, your body automatically tries to heal itself. It starts throwing down. It's like a gooey stuff, and it causes adhesions.
Right.
And then it stiffens up. It's a lot of pain, and you have to, when you're working with patients, you got to actually dig in there and break up all those adhesions. It's very painful. But yeah, golfers have that. But
Well, I was just going to mention that I have a brother, my twin brother has disabilities. And so
Right.
I follow like, Special Olympics, stuff like that. And, man, people are able to golf with, those disabilities and stuff. So it's not going to necessarily keep them from like doing an activity like that and or doing an activity like,
right.
right.
Yeah, it's
That's what they compensate.
yeah, and yeah,
Right.
If Randy's a golfer, he's compensating.
Oh yeah. You have to learn how to play with it.
Now, did that say Randy was a golfer? Or is it
Right.
just-
Yeah. Randy.
yeah. So Randy's probably in a lot of pain after a golf session because there's a lot of twisting movements.
Oh.
And golfing actually causes a
Yeah,
lot of
it does.
problems
It does.
with people after they play golf for say 30 years. All right, people. Before we start, we're going to name motives. We're not going to do anything different than the police did, so no one get their panties in a wad about me saying it's
Or underwear or briefs.
Yeah, or underwear. We're just going to go through certain people and tell you why we think or why we don't.
Yeah, this is all out there.
And again, that's why I say this will be a probably a short show because we've got about 4 different motives here.
Well, and
we have 5 actually,
we may have some new
and people.
we may have some new people following us and maybe even tuning in right now and that are going to watch this. And so I feel like it's important early on, because we are early on in what we're doing, is that, again, this is a discussion platform. So if you've seen some of the comments we've gotten, most of them are really positive. I'm really proud of us, by the way.
Well, thank you.
But no, most of them are really positive. But sometimes they're
2 knuckleheads talking about crime.
2 chimpanzees.
Yeah.
But I also, there's been some negative ones, and I try to reiterate because I try to respond. We try to stay active. Is that this is a discussion? It's almost like a discussion between me and you. We're trying to figure this out. We're trying to sort it out, and that's why we invite people into the chat and to call us.
Yeah.
Right. So it's nothing personal.
No,
Not at all. Yeah.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Go into those motives, dude.
Yeah. All right. Well, actually, it's suspects with a motive. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So first, the first thing a homicide detective's going to do is look at the family, right? They're going to look at the husband.
Whoever's closest to him. Yeah.
Right. So we got Brandon Bevers, right? But the thing is, it can't be Brandon. He was in Mississippi. And from what I understand, this is a trip like that his company did, maybe.
Oh, okay.
So it's not like it's out of blue. I'm gonna go out here.
Oh, I need to leave this.
Yeah, I need to that I need to be out of town,
Right.
so I can kill my wife.
Right.
It was a scheduled thing, been on the books for him for quite some time. They checked, they checked everything. The car, he was where he was. I've heard some people on different podcasts kind of go, well, it's kind of weird, when he's on the flight, like, I'm landing now. Hey, I'm going to eat at Joe's Crab Shack today, and taking pictures of the almost like he's trying to make a pictorial alibi for himself throughout the day.
Like he's overcompensating.
Nah, she can come in here if you want. You want to say hi to everybody? You guys want to see my granddaughter?
She said no.
She said no.
Hey,
Okay.
that's my nanny. Actually, hey, nanny, can you please?
Yeah.
I tell everybody at the gym that Taylor's my nanny.
Yeah, she is kind of. But anyway, so they checked Brandon out, man. But like I said, I was listening to a podcast where someone said, "Well, that looks weird. Looks like he's creating that alibi, not by just saying it, but he has pictures." But I know people. I got a friend. I won't mention his name. Like he'll go, "I'm on the airplane. We're getting ready to take off in 30 seconds." I mean, it's a blow by blow. Here comes the flight attendant. I ordered a beer.
Yeah.
So there are people out there that they get excited about a trip and they start kind of documenting what they're doing, and I get it.
Definitely.
So there's absolutely, as of right now, there's no evidence that Brandon murdered his wife. He wasn't there. He just wasn't there.
I do, like, it is hard for me to wrap my head around that, though, with the sending of, like, I'm at Joe's Crab Shack, just because of my relationship with my wife. It would not be like that.
Yeah.
So I could see that being, like, to some people, like, that's really weird.
Yeah. I mean, I would never do that either. But the thing is, there's people. There's probably
Pamela would be like, I don't care.
Yeah. I hope you made it, but I don't care what you're doing.
Bring me something home.
Yeah. So, I mean, and there may be people in a chat room who, when they fly, they are excited and they just write down, "Hey, this is what I'm doing. Hey, I just ate at this restaurant, took a picture." just kind of documenting it.
Yeah, I guess just we've been married.
I've never
time.
did. Yeah, I mean, I've flown a lot, and I've never done that, but I can see how that could, someone could
Okay.
be excited.
It's been about 10 years since I got a picture of a plate full of food.
Yeah,
And that goes to how long you guys have been married. Like the longer you're married, the less likely you are to like share that you're going to Joe's Crab Shack.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true. So
Unless you're trying to rekindle your relationship, which
we don't have to. We got a great relationship.
me and you do. No, I'm saying, Brandon,
I know. I'm
because
just joking.
that's part of like.
No one gets my jokes.
No, isn't that part of it though? Is it like they were actively trying to reconcile their
they
relationship?
were. It's a known fact. She cheated, and they were trying to work on a relationship. She would send him texts like, "Hey, I love you, thinking about you, have a safe flight," that kind of thing.
So you would be a little bit over the top, like
so
in
there
that
might
scenario.
be a little, yeah. And the other thing is, I've never heard if Brandon had cheated on her. They never talk about that.
No, yeah. They just said they have financial difficulties as well.
Yeah,
which
and
we
then-
all do.
Who doesn't have
Yeah.
financial difficulties?
Yeah.
So-
Hey, but if you don't have financial difficulties and you want to contact us, you can go to lifeafterlife@gmail.com and I will give you my Cash App information. You can send something right over for the show.
Oh, Garrett's going to start doing super chats, you guys. You watch. Just a matter of
What
time.
is that?
It's where they put a $sign in the chat room, and if they want just to donate how much money, they can do from $1 to
$5,000
to $10, or they can put in they could put in 5,000.
Okay, go ahead. You guys got that email. I'll put it in the chat room.
Yeah.
All right,
Don't
continue.
listen to him, you
Sorry.
guys. Okay, so Randy Bevers, again, from me being a therapist, looking at him, looking at the perpetrator, if Randy Bevers was not out of state, I'm going, that's the guy.
Mm-hmm.
That's the guy. He's got neck problems. He's got external rotation. He's got all sorts of problems, and it matches Randy.
Right.
Right? But,
A lot of people are, even look in the comments from our last video.
yeah. But Randy, some people think he felt bad for his son in a bad marriage and wanted to help him get out of the marriage without having to go through a divorce and the financial strain that it could have on his son. So, it'd be like dad coming to his son going, "Hey, I'll kill your wife for you.
Yeah, I'll take care of that. Yeah.
I'll take her out for you, buddy."
Yeah, and you would be
But,
like, Dad, what are you doing?
Yeah.
No, stop. We're not
Yeah.
talking about this. Stop, okay? I know you love me, but please don't kill my wife, okay? We can sort this out.
Yeah, we can get a divorce.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So, but Randy had a solid alibi. From what I understand, is not only was like some people go, "Well, if his wife was in on it?" Well, from what I understand, they were friends out there. And I did see in the comments someone says something about, well, he could have took a private plane and flew because it's a 2.5 hour flight. But man,
From where?
From San Diego to Texas
A 2.5 hour flight on a private jet?
on private jet.
Okay. I don't know if I believe that, but all right.
Yeah, you could do it
Okay.
in 2.5 hours, easy. So, but I mean,
For what? How much would that cost you to get on a private
well,
jet?
no, it'd be like apparently from what I've read, and again, this is just hearsay that he knew some wealthy people.
Okay.
He kind of, I don't know.
So if you knew some wealthy people, he might be able to know how to move some
If
money
someone-
around.
Well, we'll get into that. I knew that was coming.
I was just throwing that out there. Okay.
All right. So, in fact, that's the next thing. Okay. So, first of all, let me say this too. So, Randy was completely checked out. He was vetted.
I do not believe Randy murdered
yeah.
Missy Bevers.
And Randy was definitely in California. Brandon, we know, was.
I do
in
not believe
Mississippi.
Brandon murdered Missy Bevers.
I don't either one of them. Okay, but the next theory, which is going to tie the two for Garrett, is called the hitman theory. Brandon and Randy devised a plan to hire a hitman, establish an alibi for them both by both of them being out of state at the time this happened.
Mm-hmm.
It is a little kind of weird that they both were out of state when Missy was killed. But
Brutally murdered inside of a
Brutally
church by somebody that was wearing SWAT gear.
so let's give everybody your take on that. The hitman theory. Go ahead, talk it.
No. And again, this is just from what.
No, I'm not mad or anything. I'm just saying.
No, I know, but
I want to know what your
This
thought
is from the
on it.
information that we have available to us. Okay.
Right.
I just wanted to preface it with that. Is that we know that we're going on a fishing trip well in advance.
Oh yeah,
That's documented that they knew well in advance.
right.
That
They did.
is enough time, okay, to plan this out. And they were probably doing it in advance anyways, okay, at this point. I mean, because
Yeah.
for me, this is a case that really might not get, so I hate to say that, but it is very difficult to solve.
It's
okay?
going to be very difficult for them to solve this
Because it seems as though this was very premeditated. This was very planned out.
case. Very, very well planned out.
Very well planned out, to all the way down to the point where the gate. I mean, think about how much we've talked about the gate and the walk and the
Wow, and what? Yeah,
right?
right.
It's almost like whoever planned this knew that everybody would be focusing in on that. They'd be focusing on a couple things. Those that were very close around Missy Bevers, so husband, in-laws, anything like that. So obviously, there you go. It's almost like they were sacrificing a pawn. Randy, hey, you got this thing with your right? We can replicate this. We can both be out. We can
Right.
take the bloody white shirts, which I still can't wrap my head
Yeah,
around. And I had some people in the chat in the comments that were like, well, people are different. And, maybe not somebody would throw their shirt away. They'll take it. Yeah. So I just find it weird that after daughter-in-law is murdered, you take anything bloody to anywhere. Right? Just hold on to it. God forbid the police come in.
Well, I didn't think. Can you get blood out of a white shirt?
That's exactly. Well, I thought about like red wine, like spilling red wine on your. I mean,
Forget about it.
forget about it. Forget about it. And so for me, like whenever you lay out what we know on the table, that's what it would allude to. Now you are saying that. Okay, first off, let's back up. I was saying that I feel like there is way to move monies around in order to make this work.
Okay.
I also know that people like to hold on to cash.
Right? Yeah, we talked about that a little bit earlier.
Dirty, germ-ridden bills. Okay? And so we can go back through the finances. There's also ways to hide your finances and your financial transactions, right? You brought up a point that said, well, with the private jet, supposedly he knows some people that are pretty wealthy.
Right.
Well, in that case, it would be very easy to hide your financial movements, right? Because that would be the only way that the police or forensics would be able to tie them into this crime.
Yeah, I listened to a prosecutor talk about this, and this prosecutor used to do investigations of like for drugs, like looking financial trails, and she said about almost 100% of the time we found it, and
Right.
she said, if they confiscated everything, and she said it's really hard to get large amounts of money or even a little. They even look for little amounts of money that over a period of time,
Right.
and they'll ask about why did you
So, yeah, like
pull
you're
that-
making payments.
like you're
right.
keeping that under the bed,
Right.
and eventually when you get to 10,000, you pay off a hitman,
Right.
or you buy drugs or whatever.
Right.
But she said just about 100% of the time, she said we can find it.
But how would there be a market for a hitman on the dark web? Hitman. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but I don't know, man. I've never been on a dark web, so I don't know. I mean, could we get on the dark web right now and hire a hitman to kill someone, and he actually would do it if we had the cash?
It seemed like from the Dateline show I saw.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed like it was pretty readily available that there's
well,
people
yeah,
willing
and I
to
mean,
do
I
it.
heard, there's the sex trafficking. You can actually buy cocaine on the dark
Right.
web,
Oh,
or
yeah.
drugs or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
From what I hear, I've never been on it, but they used to. What was that one magazine, Mercenary or something, where there'd be hitmen in the back and ads like
Yeah.
hire a mercenary.
Yeah.
I guess it's possible.
Well,
but-
it leaves me to two conclusions. Okay. It was either a hired the hitman theory. Okay. And for me, if that's what it is, how well planned out, how meticulous is this, where they're making people go down a rabbit hole chasing Randy, knowing that his alibi is absolutely solid, Brandon is absolutely solid.
Right.
There's no financial records. They're gonna, everybody's gonna be going down that rabbit hole
Well,
for so long, dude.
And also with Randy,
Smoking
God,
mirrors.
like I mean, it's almost like he's kind of taunting with, "I'm going to turn in this bloodstone shirt instead of throw it away,"
Exactly.
because they have nothing on me.
Well, and I
and-
think per that theory, I feel like the reason why you would turn in, like if I'm Randy in that situation, the reason I turn that in is because I know that's going to draw scrutiny, and there's absolutely no way that they're going to be able to prove any connection to this crime to me.
Yeah,
So therefore,
Yeah,
it would
he-
just
so-
add you're buying time. You're like getting it to go cold, right? And you're getting people to talk about it
An
and to make it sound
investigator-
crazy.
An investigator said he actually walked in. He said, "I'm Randy Bevers. You know Missy Bevers. He brought up the murder,
Okay.
and while he's turning in this blood-stained shirt,
Okay.
almost like, hey,
Right. Make sure you.
make sure
yeah.
you call the cops. you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's almost a taunting thing. I mean, but yeah, it's possible, man.
You would have to have a lot of hate in your heart. And you would also have to have a lot of, I mean, we all love our kids unconditionally.
yeah,
But that's
even,
like, dude, that's crazy.
yeah, I mean, like a father and a son. Like I'm thinking about my dad going, "Hey, will you kill Pam?"
Yeah. Right.
I'm
Right.
Like, what? You know?
Or your dad coming to you and be like, let
But
me
you would
kill
have
Pam.
to know. Yeah, you would have
Sorry,
to.
Pam.
You would have to know that your father's a psycho,
Right. Well, you would talk him down.
and you'd have to be a psycho as well to do that. But
Right.
But yeah,
But maybe not, because like what I said in the last episode is whenever you're under financial stress, whenever you're under marital stress, whenever you feel like that maybe you could lose your kids, because again, Randy Bevers loves Brandon like we love our own kids.
Right.
That's inherent in us, right? Like,
Yeah.
And
You
so
would do- yeah, you'd do anything for your kids,
You can
but
somewhat.
there's-
No, I know, but you could see where somebody could start going down a path of madness to where, and that they would have these things surrounding the event to where they could justify it in their mind that this is the right thing to do because I'm sacrificing one person for the betterment of the entire family.
Yeah, yeah.
And
no,
so-
and again, dude, it's possible, and I'm going by the evidence,
Right.
And it's just not there. I mean, so what you're saying? Do you think like, okay, let's say Randy and his dad had to, I don't know what a hitman charges, but I would think it'd be a tremendous amount
Man,
of money.
well, from what I've seen,
how
like,
would you get that cash?
well, so from what I've seen, like in some investigations where they like doing undercover stings and they're catching like mostly women.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, it's like from what I've seen, it's mostly women hiring him and not guys or couples.
right.
That are wanting to get rid of somebody is that they'll pay like from the 3 or 4 sting operations I've
It's a
watched.
layaway.
It'd be like 5,000 down. Pay the other when it's
Okay,
done.
but you just pulled 5,000 out of the bank. That looks suspicious.
Oh, it
to me.
definitely looks suspicious.
So how do you get that 5,000?
Well, and
out?
I told you that I wanted to talk to my guy today and actually figure out how to move money around, like because I know he would know. But I feel like it can't be that hard. I just don't think it can be that hard to hide your trail. I mean, if cartels are doing it, if money laundering is going on, like in the Delphi case, right?
Yeah.
If there's corruption in Canadian counties, somebody can find a way to move money around, and or they're sitting on cash.
Right. But a lot of times investigators aren't looking at that, though. You know what I mean?
What do you mean?
Well, when you're talking about that, like we're talking about if you're doing corruption and you're moving money around, well, yeah, there's a chance I get caught if we get investigated.
Right,
You know what I'm
right.
saying? So if you know for a damn fact you're getting investigated because you're getting ready to hire a hitman to kill your daughter-in-law or your wife,
Yes.
that's going to get looked at. So
It's going to be under scrutiny. Yeah.
well, yeah, but I mean, yeah, and even if you did a payment installment, if, let's say he charged 15,000, which I would think that'd be really low to do that.
Oh, yeah.
But a big amount, like pulling $5,000 out,
Yeah.
But is there a chance you could have a bank account no one knew about
Well,
that's
or,
not traceable, that they can't find any financial records on it?
man, I don't want the IRS to be listening in right now, but
No, I mean, could you make a PO box? I mean, but I think with bank accounts you can't do that, can you, with a PO box?
no. But my point is that like when you're filling out your taxes, like if you do it the right way, if you keep your receipts, if you know what I'm saying, you can write off some stuff. You know what I'm saying? So for me, like not even talking about that, there's a way I think that if you had somebody else involved in it, that you could be spending money for nothing.
Yeah.
And if he's connected,
Yeah, you could set up. Yeah, I mean,
it is stretching though.
so now you got a third party involved now.
You would have to.
Yeah, but to me that'd be hard getting them involved.
It's the Matt Sullivan's theory of the Missy Bevers case,
Yeah.
essentially. But no, the reason why, because when you look at what we know though, okay, and what we're able, like the knowledge we have, that's where I would be like, okay, this is the only way that the hitman theory would work out. The only hiccup you come up to is how did you pay the hitman?
Right.
Unless there's another family member or something weird,
Could you do this? If you had a good friend, he was involved in it, and say, "Hey, I'm going. You're going to get. You could do cash. Say I'm going to fake sell you something. All right, and you give the 5,000 cash to him to hang on to. He gives you something for it. Like say he's got an old trailer in the back.
Right.
I'll give you $5,000 for that old trailer. You know,
Or you're going to do some work on my RV that I'm taking to
or you're gonna
California.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
you may.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
yeah.
But yeah, again, you'd have to have the guy in on it with you, of course.
Right.
Agree
Well,
to
that would probably be like the hitman, though.
yeah, but that would be too risky.
Maybe.
If it's a hitman, I bet he was out of state. I bet he did.
I bet so too.
Yeah, because that
But
you
then-
you can jump on the interstate from, I believe, pretty quickly from that church, and you're gone out of there.
Yeah, yeah. So whenever Tim was on and he was explaining like the geographical location of it, it gave me. It started coming back to me, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's easily in and out. Boom.
Yeah.
Midlothian. And so but that's where the hiccup is, right? With that theory. I'm not saying that's my theory. I'm saying that is a theory that could be out on the table.
I'm not saying that theory's wrong.
Right.
I'm because as I'm running through my mind thinking, well, if I had a friend in on it and we got receipts for all this stuff. I pull out $5,000, I give it to him. I get a fake product from him. But
Service.
to do that though, I think you'd have to plan that like maybe a year in advance or more. So you don't want to make it look like every month I've took out $5,000.
No, definitely.
Yeah, so it'd be like, in February I took out $5,000, and then in August took out, maybe do it in 2000, and then
Man, and I hate to even like go down this path, but it could have been a year in advance. I mean, these marital problems, again, we keep using the word reconcile.
yeah.
So when this happened, they were trying to reconcile. That means that they were having financial and marital problems way in advance of that.
Yeah.
Right. And so this ball could have gotten rolling. And then by the time they're reconciling, maybe it's not going well.
I wonder when he found out that Missy was cheating on him.
That's a good question.
Because jealousy, as we know, Joe Kenda, number one reason for murder. Number one reason for murder is jealousy. And it'd be interesting to find out if we could find out. Hey, Tim, I see you in the chat room there.
What's up, Tim?
Tim, do you know when Brandon found out that Missy was cheating on him? Because then you could kind of
Timeline.
Build
a timeline, yeah.
But if we think of that, detectives have got to. But still, if they got to have evidence. If I go to this guy, he has a bona fide receipt. Yeah, man, he gave me $5,000. I sold him an old trailer house,
Exactly.
or something like that, or a trailer. Or something.
I just feel like that these things happen not in a murder case, but generally like in life quite a bit.
Yeah, and again, and that's the hardest thing is covering that money trail,
Right.
Because it's something you just can't go pull that money out of the bank, man.
Hey, there's a great show on National Geographic right now called Trafficked. Have you seen that?
No,
Previous year.
huh?
The previous year.
The previous.
Okay, so the
there
previous
you go.
year, so you'd have a year.
2015.
Yeah, so that give you some time to work on that.
Super emotional. You go to your dad, and he's like, "Dude, this is the only way. This is the only way we're gonna get out of this and keep the kids. You get the money.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a theory, though. That's not.
I know.
I mean, this case hasn't been solved.
There is sociopaths that aren't necessarily killers, but they don't really have that empathy feeling, so they don't care. I mean, those people are out there, yeah.
Cass thinks I'm a sociopath.
Yeah, it is. When I listen to you, well, I won't say you and Larry talk about war, and we've shot this one. Oh yeah, I wouldn't even go into
Good,
that.
please don't.
And they start laughing.
Yeah, it's just okay. Yeah, Cass says, but no. So what? But my point is, even when we were talking about drones and watching dogs like eat people, right? We were like, for somebody like Randy in that situation, we were saying you're fighting for the good. There's a mission, right?
Yep.
And so you're able to dehumanize the enemy. And so for somebody like Randy in that situation, it would be easy to dehumanize somebody that's hurting your son so badly, right? And so by him not actually being the active killer, you could see where he would go down that path of madness. And so that's just why I brought up the theory, is because it's not necessarily, it hasn't been proven or unproven, right?
No.
I mean, I guess it's been proven that it's wrong, supposedly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, what could you? Let's say the scenario that I just brought up about buying something. If the cops see the receipt and they can't do anything, so it's like,
I know, yeah.
So that to them is evidence that this wasn't a hit.
When you
right?
see it
Although
all the
it could
time,
have been.
and you see it all the time on the first 48.
Right.
I love that show. But you do, where they'll like they know that this person's the killer, and they'll get some crazy evidence, and they'll be like, God dang it, it checks out. It checks out. A dead end.
Yeah.
And they'll move on to the next thing. They're like, okay, we got to move on to this. Get on
Yeah.
their Facebook. Let's see what their Facebook, and they'll just keep going and keep going. So
Right, because they can't waste time. You
Right.
know, they've got to keep the case moving.
Right.
And
alive.
so, yeah, absolutely. But another thing I wanted to say about the uniform, and Paul Holes brought up a good point. He said, he goes, I believe this uniform was used as a way to approach Missy without scaring her. He could, if it was a guy, he could have said, ma'am, we're looking into a burglary. Have you seen anybody in the building? And then as he gets close to her, then that's when the attack happens. If he's dressed in sweatpants and a stocking cap, Missy sees him like bing. And we know this guy
Or girl.
or girl with the disabilities that I'm seeing, as fast as Missy probably, she's a very strong lady. She could outrun this guy with no problem. It would,
out of there.
So, yeah. So wearing a cop uniform, Paul Hull says, I think he wore it because he knew that he could approach her or she. And I'm sure that there's women, here's another thing. There's women that work for the police. There's women that have to put on the right gear. So it could be a female voice coming out and still be believable, right?
Oh yeah.
So,
for sure.
yeah. So
Probably even more believable.
he said
honestly.
that, right. And so he came to that conclusion of, well, that way I could approach her as soon as I get up to her, the attack.
And what's his
happens
name again?
immediately. Paul Holes. He was the one on the Golden State Killer. He did him and this one lady did the DNA, the genetic thing.
Right.
They made the family tree of this guy.
Oh yeah.
So
I was gonna be a little bit ornery.
What's that?
I was going to be a little bit ornery until you reminded me who he was. He's amazing. But I was going to say, we did mention that on the last show, though. We talked about if you were to go in, and I gave the example of like going into my gym and somebody turning around like in a cop uniform, I'd go up to him immediately
Yeah.
and be like, hey, what are you doing here? Like, is everything okay? At 4 in the morning?
So that's why I don't think this thing was random at all. I mean, there was too much preparation put into this thing. But we do have my last theory, which I don't think we might be there, that I just came up right with before we started talking.
We haven't talked necessarily about the random theory, though, of that this was a random robbery. We did a little bit.
Right. And we haven't talked about the jealous, angry wife.
Right. Okay, good. Well, so just really quick to circle back around to the random robbery thing.
Yep.
We talked about safes. We talked about an amount of preparation that went into doing this. And so the other thing was people were leaving comments saying, and I think Tim even brought this up, like, well, he wasn't even like worried, right? That people were going to come in at any time because he or she didn't expect that there was going to be a class. Like they don't even know that the knowledge of and I didn't know about the early bird, by the way, until you told me the early bird and the 5 o'clock class. So that's why they're being so nonchalant. But my argument would be is that the reason they're being so nonchalant is because they were so well planned out and knew exactly what was going to happen. But there is one thing to that theory.
What's that?
And we kind of covered it. And I've listened to the episode again and again, listen to what Tim have to say. Is that little 10-minute window between 4:20 and like 4:30 when the early bird would happen, that's essentially when the murder took place. Am I wrong?
Yeah, I think it was between, I think they said 4:20, 4:25 when the initial attack happened.
And so that's what makes, and so that's why I'm so glad, even with Matt Sullivan on the Delphi thing, we have people out there like Tim who has a theory and really believes in it and brings up these points, because when I listen back to it, that's what caught my eye, was the fact that there's a 10-minute window there. And you kept saying in that episode, I'd be out of there. If I was a hitman and she was running late, I'd be like, later.
Yeah, like if she didn't get there by 4:15,
right?
And let's say that the early bird starts at 4:30. Well, you might have people that show up at 4:20, 4:25 for the early bird. Man,
right?
You're cutting it close,
really close.
But we also, what we have to look at: did she advertise about or talk about the early bird on Facebook?
I'm sure we could find that out.
Yeah. I'm sure Tim knows that.
So I just wanted to circle back around to that, because it's something I was thinking about on the way over here when I was re-listening to the episode, is that it's great for people like Tim that are so invested in it to have these ideas and to put it out on the table, because as I'm re-listening to it in my head, I'm thinking there's no way this was random. It was so planned out. It could have been a hitman. It could have been a jealous wife, right?
Yeah.
Cop uniform, car driving around the parking lot. But whenever he talks about that 10-minute window, and then you're like, dude, yeah, I would have been out of there. In my head, I'm thinking, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
If I'm strolling around breaking windows and chilling, and then I get to like 4 or 5, I'm like, okay. I get to like 4:10, I'm like, okay. It's starting to get itchy. Now I'm starting to look down halls like, hey, you coming in?
Yeah, but I mean, if you're really confident about,
If you've done a lot,
I know I can kill her in about 2 seconds.
True.
And I mean that even if someone saw me, they're going to be scared of me, right?
Right.
And I know where to go to get out, get my car, and out. The worst thing that could happen for him with them seeing the car, getting a tag or something like
Right.
that, which is probably
sure
a
he got
stolen
it.
tag.
Right.
That tag was probably taken care of.
Well, and even that, do you think that maybe the police gear could be used as a smoke and mirrors for people that would be coming in? So like as you're leaving the scene of a crime, as if you saw, God forbid,
absolutely.
an encounter, I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, get out of here, like go home, or hey, somebody's, you could make it to the point. You could even just
Right. I mean, even if he committed the murder, I'm coming through the door and I see a cop running, I wouldn't think he would have had anything to do with anything.
right.
But even now, later, I find out, okay, he was the murderer. What did I see? I saw someone in a cop uniform.
It's shock and awe.
That's
what
absolutely.
it's shock and awe.
This
It's
disguise was so good.
a good,
I
right?
mean, like he could turn around and waved at the guy, and you say, well, describe him for me. Well, he had tactical gear.
Right.
That's all. That's it.
See, and that goes back to the point of me like thinking that it's
So
just,
he could go to he could say, whether these people get here or not,
Doesn't matter.
I'm hired. I got to do this.
Yeah.
And they don't know who I am. They're not going to see me. And I get in my car. I'm out of there.
Hey.
I probably got bogus plates anyway. It's not, if he went to all that trouble, believe me, those plates wouldn't have matched anything.
Yeah.
He could have stole those off. And you know how easy it is to steal plates off a car. Someone's
Happens all
parked
the time.
outside.
Delphi,
Get your screwdriver, pull the plate off.
Gabe Ellis, and
Right.
Tyler French, and those
So
guys.
so it's very, and then someone that's nutty enough to do that, they're somewhat fearless, right?
Yeah.
To take a life. So like,
I
hey,
get nervous just
I'm
going into
getting paid.
Walmart.
Yeah,
I do, just a shop. I'm like, oh man, I don't want to go in here.
yeah.
So yeah, you would have to be fearless.
You would have to be fearless, and then so at 4:20, you're thinking again. So that's a great thing you brought up is if people show up, they see a cop. He could. Like you said, he probably could just walk through and said, excuse me, guys.
Right.
They're not, they may be
By
startled.
the time they see the actual crime scene, he's
Right.
gone, dude.
Yeah.
You're on the highway.
Right. So he
'Cause
gets in
even-
his car and leaves, and they're going, man, what happened? And they go in, and he's already gone.
Because even like Tim said, well, it's right off a highway,
Yeah.
and so,
Yeah.
so I just wanted to circle back around and make that point.
Yeah. I don't think this wasn't a robbery gone bad. I just don't feel that at all. Because I even talked to a couple of cops about it, and he said, man, not 100% of the time, he said, you're watching surveillance video of someone breaking into like a gun store or a pawn shop. He said they're ravaging through there like a million miles an hour. They're throwing stuff in bags as quick
Right.
as possible. And he says sometimes, man, they're 30 seconds. He goes, they can crash something, grab a bunch of rings, put it in a bag, gone. He said they do not just wander around somewhere. He said that, because I showed him the tape, and he said, yeah, he goes, this isn't a robbery.
Right.
Because this guy's, he would, if it was a robbery, he knew what he was going to get, and he would have went right and got it and got the hell out of there.
Well, and like I said, that's a lot of planning and effort. Because per your theory, he breaks the window, he leaves, he or she goes to a vantage point where they can see if law enforcement shows up, goes back in, not to mention in tactical gear. For maybe $500, it's probably locked in a safe.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's, I'm sure it was the Monday, Sunday, they would have got the offerings, probably wouldn't have did their
It was a Monday.
Huh?
When was the murder committed?
I think it was very early Monday morning.
Oh, okay.
Very early. So Sunday they would have had church, so they would have had an offering, which I'm sure the pastor, whoever's in charge of finances, would have put it in the safe. And then when they came in the morning, they take it and deposit it in the bank or whatever. So it would have been there overnight. But that's the thing is, doesn't take an idiot to figure out they're going to keep this in a safe. I'm not a safe
Right.
cracker. I'm not going to carry a safe.
Or they're going
out.
to carry it out of there.
They're not going to put it in the old money
Yeah.
bags and put it in the drawer. You know?
I'm not going to say what we do with our money, our cash that we make, but we don't leave it
Never
in our facility.
Never. No one does
Yeah.
that. All right, you want to move on?
Yep.
So, is that pretty much your random part of it? Being anything else you got to say about you? Think?
No.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
perfect.
All right. So the next one for me, it is hot in here, Pam. You know what? You can turn that fan on. Just pull the string. Jealous, angry wife theory. Dun dun dun. Garrett.
Sorry, I had to respond to that.
So jealous, angry wife.
Which I think that you kind of lean into that a little bit.
I do because I mean, and again, all these theories we're throwing out there. I'm just speculating. I'm not saying I'm the man who knows what happened here.
Yeah, seasoned investigator
I'm
Keith,
seasoned investigator Keith Sharp.
Detective Sharp.
No, I think it's very possible when, jealousy is just a horrible emotion. Some people can handle it in a level way.
Right.
Some people act out on it.
A lot of people act out on it.
Right. A lot of people act out on it. They might not kill them, but they might beat their ass.
Or they might post stuff all over Facebook.
Right.
Or like something, a microcosm of what could be.
Right. So then
way
you're
worse.
you're into a small percent that a wife, say the wife's pissed off because the husband slept with Missy. Missy's a very attractive lady. Maybe she's not pretty as Missy. I mean, and I know that sounds stupid, but there is.
I got you.
There kind of is that thing.
Yeah.
It's like, God, she's so much prettier than me, and it just makes me even angrier.
Ah.
And so I can the right ingredients in a human being. It could have been an angry wife.
And you're gonna raise my kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I
Yeah,
think that would be
absolutely.
like the
Yeah.
biggest thing. Like, you're gonna raise my kid? No, not
Right.
gonna happen.
Right, absolutely. So I mean, so to me, there's a chance that it could have been one of the. I heard, and I don't want to say without facts. Yeah. So a lot of times when you see me, I'm looking up and I'm trying to think: should I say this? Should I not say this?
Just go ahead and say it.
I,
It's 2021. We're fine.
I know, but it's still. But I don't have any
Is
evidence.
it, well, do you want me to say it? Because I think I know what you're about to say.
I heard an investigator say that they found about 9 to 10 phone numbers in Missy's phone, and these were all people that she was flirtatiously talking to, and some of them actually seeing them. Now, this is from an investigator.
Well, that was different than what I was going to say, so I'm glad you went first.
Garrett's like, that's nothing. Right?
Yeah.
No, so there, from what I understand, there were 9 males that they had to look at, that they went through her phone, found numbers and whatnot. So I'm sure, but again, I'm sure, they checked out the wives, I don't know exactly how,
But if there's no DNA left, if you don't have your cell phone on you, but then it would beg the question though, like how well prepared it was, how in advance that the person got there and planned, you know what I'm saying? Because some people are saying like, well, the reason why the person's wearing a bulletproof vest isn't only to conceal their identity, but also because they knew that Missy had a concealed carry.
Yeah, dude. I mean, you've got such a great point too about the hitman thing.
Yeah,
because it does that absolutely.
There's
if
intimate
I'm
knowledge.
a hitman and I know this girl has a concealed carry, I might put on a bulletproof vest.
Right. Well, it's almost like, and going back to the Delphi, the theory there was that these people were brought to a kill spot, and it was very well orchestrated and executed.
Absolutely.
And I feel
100%.
I feel 100%. I feel I feel a lot like the same way for this one.
Yeah, the Delphi. I totally think. Yeah, those girls were catfished out there. I know we've already talked about this, and I'll get off it here.
We only did 10.5 hours.
Oh my God, I know. That was exhausting.
Yeah.
But anyway, it was very well organized. I think the girls were baited out there. Like you said, I think they picked the place. This is where we're going to take them.
Ambush.
And I think there was 2 people.
Yeah, I think there was one.
Yeah, so moving right along.
No. So, I just see a lot of similarities. And I just don't know if, I feel like a jealous wife. And, dude, this is pure speculation.
Yeah, well, that's what this whole show's about.
Yeah, for sure. I just think that a jealous wife, I mean, that would have to be a lot of planning and a lot of things going right. to not leave anything behind, to leave your cell phone behind for your husband who you're killing this, right? For
Right.
him to be like, hey, where'd you go last night?
Yeah.
Why were you gone from 2 until 5?
Yeah, I mean, and I agree with you.
Yeah.
That's it's almost more liable that Randy and Brandon hired a hitman than
Yeah.
a jealous wife. I get that.
Right. Well, and the brutality of the crime itself, it would be,
Yeah.
from what we know.
Right. From what we've heard. So you got a question there, Garrett?
Okay, so this is important. This is also from Ann Lee. So Ann, our little back and forth right there where Keith was doing this
Yeah.
and he was thinking about if he should say it, and I was like, do you want me to say it? And he's like, no, I got it. I was actually going to bring this point up. So Ann Lee says, was one of the rumored affairs a police officer or an ex-cop? Which I brought up last
You brought that up.
I
And
did.
You know what?
I just saw that on a chat board.
Yeah, and I went through some of the podcasts about this.
Yep.
And on one of them, that was brought up that there's possibility she was dating a guy that was in law enforcement.
And
That would almost be too obvious, though.
well, the thing about it is, like, from what I was reading, and again, this is just some random citizen making a comment,
right.
but it kind of stuck out to me is that they said that the reason why they had the police gear on was almost like as a way to rub it in to their husband, their significant other.
Oh,
That
right.
yeah, I got you.
And she would have access to that.
Right.
And is he going to go?
I got- yeah.
Once he figures it out, he's like, oh, shit.
That's my stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things I read. And
Now,
but
did they find this to be a fact that
no,
she
this
was?
this is just
all
no,
speculation.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that got around. I mean, that's something maybe Tim knows. But yeah, I saw that all over the net about the possibility that they found one of these guys was in law enforcement. But man, I don't know that to be
Right.
fact, and I don't think it is.
Right. I don't think it is either.
Because in all the investigations, I mean, when you hear the
Right.
detectives talk or people talk about it who are close to the investigation, like I think definitely, see Billy Jennings and Paul Holes, I got some of the information from. Like I said, he talked to somebody working on that investigation.
It was close to it.
That was close to it. If something like that had happened, I think Billy would have brought that up on the podcast.
Right. Well, and even in the article that I was reading, it never once was brought up.
Okay.
But I went ahead and was reading through the banter back and forth between people, and it just like 10 down, all of a sudden it just popped out, and I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I just thought it was interesting.
But
So,
man,
but Ann Lee brought it up too. So that's
Yeah,
fine.
Ann Lee-
Hey, thanks for taking one for me.
Yeah.
And thanks for taking one for the team.
Yeah, Ann Lee, that's great because I mean, what a way to rub it in your husband's nose. When the husband sees the gear, he ain't talking.
No.
You know, he's
Yeah.
not saying anything. So it's almost like, yeah, that's possible.
Right.
Yeah, because
Well, and it goes towards your theory of the jealous woman, right?
right.
It would go that's
Yeah,
what it would go
would
towards.
exactly fit
Yeah,
in
yeah.
with that. Jealous, and then got her husband too. at
Right.
the same
Yeah,
time,
yeah, yeah.
Making a cop look like it did it.
Yep.
All right, good stuff. You guys are rocking. That was good. Okay, now here's the crazy theory. This is the last one we have. Is we were talking about what if we just had a schizophrenic individual, or someone on bath salts, right? I'm going to be a cop, man.
Yeah.
And he gets all this gear, he puts it on, and
Has the gear.
breaks into church, and let's say he's mentally ill, and that's why he's not taking anything because he's either messed up really bad on drugs or
Right.
something. You know, he could have been on. Who knows?
Right.
Right. And he's he's playing cop in his mind. It's a fantasy. I'm playing cop. I'm walking through here checking the doors, but of course I'm going to bust a window for the hell of it.
Yeah.
Which makes no
Well,
sense.
I want
at
to
all.
feel like I'm in a crime scene.
Yeah, yeah. And then Missy comes in, and he freaks out and just kills her.
An intruder.
An
Because in his mind,
right.
he would think somebody's breaking in as an
So
intruder.
you could say, well, maybe he went in just to vandalize, just to hang out and bust stuff up. That's
Right.
how he got his jollies. But then when you take it to murder, that's a whole different level. But if this guy was mentally ill, schizophrenic, something like that, or he had taken
Under
bath
the
salts,
influence or meth.
he was on some
A
hallucinogenic
bender,
drug,
yeah.
that's also a scenario that could be possible.
Absolutely.
100%.
100%. I mean, I haven't seen that one out there.
But let's say this. would he think of the fine details of busting the window, getting his car, leaving, and watching for emergency vehicles? If you're messed up or mentally ill, would you think of that?
Would you just go in?
Or yeah, you would just go in.
Yeah,
man.
yeah. I mean,
And might even get shot by cop or
but
something.
we don't.
But
The human mind is such a complex thing, though,
yeah, it is.
and
People-
how you're affected by things like meth or bath salts. You're eating people's faces off.
Oh God, and bath salts are they're absolutely horrible.
And so, but my point is that, like, you know, even if you're schizophrenic, I mean, there's been some people that have come up with some brilliant ideas that were schizophrenic. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, Ted Bundy, mentally ill,
Right.
got away with murder for what, 20, 25, 30 years,
Right.
something like that.
And so, yeah, my point is, though, like, we wouldn't be able to even measure that. Like,
Well, yeah, because we can't think like these people,
Right. Thank
and
God.
And again, if you add drugs to the equation to a mentally ill person,
right.
you and I both couldn't process it. I mean, it may have been a whole fantasy going on in his mind.
Right.
Maybe this sounds so stupid, and I'm going to have to cut this out, but he may be hallucinating, see Missy as a big dragon or something.
Yeah.
And he starts beating her with a hammer, or,
Right.
shooting her, or whatever
Comes to
happened.
reality, gets out of there.
Because he's not in reality. So that, I mean, as far fetched as that is, there is a chance it was just a mentally ill guy. He busted in a church, and the reason he's not in a hurry is because he's high as hell on something, and he's just walking around busting stuff,
or just going through a really schizophrenic episode.
and maybe going through a schizophrenic episode. Exactly.
Yeah, and the reason why it's okay for you to put that on the table is because, again, just like in Delphi and just like in Evansdale,
Oh, go ahead.
this case is unsolved.
Yeah, something I'm going to bring up that I felt stupid the other day about talking about the trash. Like,
No, people,
keeping an eye on someone who normally doesn't bring out their trash, and now all of a sudden they do because they're making sure that gets into the trash
Yes.
can. A guy who works for sanitation contacted me. He goes, dude, cops ride around with me all the time.
That's cool.
He said that, and he goes, when we get to that certain house, we make sure we isolate that trash or whatever, so he can go through it. So
Oh, wow.
it's not
Yeah.
as stupid as I thought. So like cops,
No, yeah.
evidently cops ride around with sanitation workers when they're wanting DNA.
Yeah, even
Because
somebody
once you
commented.
throw it
yeah.
out, it's public property at that point. It's in the garbage can. So then, yeah, when I first said that,
I thought it was great.
That's crazy.
No, because they did say, like, in the Delphi case, they even put it out there. Check to see, like, if you notice anybody that's acting differently,
Right,
If
yeah.
they're involved, if they're heavily involved in the case, or if they're shying away from the case when it's on TV, if they're not taking their trash out. I mean, that's a legitimate,
Right.
That's a legitimate aspect that
like,
needs to be.
yeah, either even
dealt with.
talking about fast food, is this guy always making sure he's taking his trash with him
Right.
outside,
which
whether-
is strange
like even a straw.
because I just leave it on the table for the workers to.
Yeah, because that
Just
guy,
kidding.
that guy had to be on after he saw that they had his DNA and video.
Yes.
he was on his guard, man.
Oh, yeah.
and probably to this day still is, because that's all they need, I think, in Delphi. I don't think they know who did it, but I think
Right.
it's going to be one of those things where they've got it in codes, and it's going to one day it's going to hit on
It's
somebody.
gonna light up.
It's
Mhm.
going to light up one day.
We're gonna
and
catch
that's
it.
what's going to happen. So that's basically all we got. I don't. If is there any questions in the chat room you guys want to ask? Go ahead and put it in now, and we'll.
I got something off topic.
Yeah, go ahead.
After you tell people that they
Yeah, I
can
was going to
call.
say, if you got a question for us, because like I said, this isn't going to be probably even a 2-hour show. So if you got a question, go ahead and put it in the chat room, and
Or call.
our producer will take your question and hand it to us, and we'll try to answer it. And if we can't, then we'll just ask Tim, because I see Tim in there. Tim,
Awesome.
I think Tim's already answering all the questions, isn't he, Pam? Pretty much. Come on,
Okay.
Tim, you got to give us a break here.
Let's go.
But no,
Okay, so hey, while they kind of
no, because what we end up doing is asking Tim anyway, right?
yeah.
So
Hey, so while they fill in questions or call, are you going to open the phone line in case anybody wants to call?
yeah, guys, I've been keeping the phone off because of weird phone calls I'm getting. So I'm gonna go ahead and connect it now. But yeah, I've been getting, dude, I get crazy phone calls now since I started this YouTube channel.
Yeah.
People leaving messages, but most of them are okay. There's some that I get, they're like, okay.
Hey, so whenever somebody calls, can they leave a voicemail?
Yes.
Hey, guys.
And that's where I usually
Yeah.
I get voicemails. And most of them are, in fact, we had someone last week, bless her heart, and I can't remember her name, and forgive me, But she said you guys are so great. She goes, I enjoy your
Good,
show, and I just
good.
wanted to call and tell you
Man,
that.
that's nice. Yeah, you told me about that.
Yeah, it's awesome. We got 2 vices connected. That's the problem.
Oh, do I need to? I might have my Bluetooth.
Is the
on.
UFO blinking? It needs to be shut. Yeah, pick up the UFO. The UFO right there.
Okay.
Push that button, hold it down until his lights go off. There we go. Awesome. Thank you, honey. Okay, now we're connected. So if you do want to make a phone call, you're welcome to do so now. 205-730-6441. That's 205-730-6441.
Perfect. I love that radio voice you do.
It's just stupid.
Hey,
But
so
if you, no, I'm just saying, it's just like, if you notice, like back in the 70s, everybody talked like, all those DJs, hey guys, how's it going?
Yeah.
Partly cloudy skies, high of tomorrow's going to be 78.
that's so good. I know how much you listen to the radio too. So.
And then because I remember meeting a DJ one time, it's like, you don't sound anything like you do on the radio.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. Steve Clem, all those guys.
So I wanted to just kind of brief the audience a little bit on the fact that we will be doing the Manson murders, and it's going to be a series.
Yes.
Because I sat down with Keith whenever we were planning the show, and we were talking about ghosts and spirits, and we were talking about Bigfoot and time travel.
Yep.
And aliens.
Our favorite subjects.
Yep. And then all of a sudden you're like, man, you know what? We should do something on the Manson murders. And I was like, well, what would that be like? And you started talking to me about it across your dinner table, and we ended up sitting there for about 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And it was one of the most intriguing conversations I've had in 2020. And so that's going to be really exciting because I think there's a lot. I was telling you the reason why it'll be good is because people my age. Oh, yeah. By the way, me and Keith are not the same age. Can we just clarify that? Okay, we had somebody telling me I shouldn't speak over my elders, and I wrote back and said, wait, he's not my elder, we're the same age. And then another lady wrote and was like, oh my God, I thought you were like 20 years younger. So we're not.
I know, because I put, well, I don't think she believes you one bit.
Yeah. So, but I was saying, like, at my age, like,
I was around when the Manson murders happened.
right, and I'm in my mid-30s, and so we have, just obviously people my age, everybody knows something about Manson.
Yeah.
Right? But I think that even younger people, like in their 20s, probably know far less than I do.
Yeah, it used to be a subject where it was cut and dry, right?
Right. That's what I always grew up believing.
Vincent Bugliosi wrote a book in 1974 called Helter Skelter, The True Stories of the Manson Murders.
Right.
And when you read that, that was it. You knew, but now there's all these different theories that people have that are coming out, which are just, they're way out there. Like saying Manson worked for the CIA.
Right.
He was recruited to start this hippie movement. It was a thing by Nixon because Nixon hated hippies, and he wanted to show, see, I told you hippies were bad. Hippies were bad.
Yeah.
They're murderers or killers. We don't need them in our society.
Right.
Because these were the people
They're
that were showing up
extremists.
at his conventions and protesting the war. He hated John Lennon. He wanted Lennon out. He tried to deport Lennon out of the country.
Did he?
Oh yeah, that went on. That was a court battle that went on for years. And
Wow.
And John won it, of course, because he stayed in New York.
Yeah.
But and then, well, there's theories on that Nixon or somebody, government CIA agent, killed Lennon or hypnotized Mark David Chapman to make him, like the Manchurian candidate thing.
Was Mark David Chapman schizophrenic?
Yes,
Okay.
very much so. He heard voices in his head. He had this whole fantasy world of little people that he was the ruler of these people.
Okay.
But they demanded things from him.
Okay.
A voice in his head that told him to kill John Lennon.
Okay.
But getting back to the Manson thing, we can talk about. What we could do is one show on just the Tate murders. Then the second show we can do on the LaBiancas.
Right.
Third, we could do about the people who were convicted, people involved, people at Spawn Ranch, people connected with Charlie. Even Brian Wilson took Charlie into his house.
Right.
And the girls, and they sit there and lived in Brian Wilson's house, trashed out his house, totaled his Ferrari.
Oh my God.
Yeah, they just, and finally, and he got to the point where he said he was scared of Charlie.
Right, I knew that.
So what he did is he left the house one day, and he had his personal manager to tell Manson to get him and his family the hell out of there.
Can you imagine being the personal manager? I'd be like, dude, are you serious?
Yeah, well,
I gotta go tell these guys.
I'll say this, but a lot of these guys weren't scared of Charlie.
Right.
These guys that were, you're affecting my clients' making
True,
money,
true,
that's
yeah.
making me money.
I got you, yeah.
Get the hell out.
Right.
You know, so
For sure.
he basically kicked Charlie out. I mean, he went to a recording studio at Brian Wilson's house, recorded a few demos. Ended up pulling a knife out on a recording engineer.
Oh my God.
And like, you know,
Have you ever done that in your life as a musician?
I've never did that in a studio ever. So he was a nut job, man. And God, what was the other thing I was going to say?
Well, about the drugs. I mean, there's another theory about the drugs.
Yeah, they're saying that there was no such thing as helter skelter. That was just a myth. Vincent Bugliosi made that his theory to convict Manson, right? Today, had that murder happened, Charlie probably I think he would have did some time. Maybe he would have got conspiracy to commit murder, which is he got.
Right.
But they gave him a death penalty for it.
Right.
Right. So Charlie's had a defense where, hey man, just because I told you to do something doesn't mean you go do it.
Especially in California.
Yeah, which he went back. He was really crazy because he went back and forth. He would be on interviews saying, "Man, I didn't tell them anything. I told them not to do anything, and they did. They only did what they wanted to do." And then I've seen him on interviews say, "Well, I was indirectly maybe involved.
Right.
I did tell them to write some crazy shit on the wall." And
It's so bizarre.
He would give you little pieces like that.
Right.
But he was such a bizarre guy.
Right.
But
I'm gonna reel you back in a second.
Okay.
You've got a couple of
people going to quit talking about Manson.
no, but you do have a couple questions.
Okay, good.
Yeah, let's do it.
Questions.
What you got?
Anley wanted to know about each of these specific theories related to Missy, what your personal thoughts are, and Tim posted, what do you think about the possibility of it's a stalker?
Ooh.
That's we'll take the first question again. I can't hear
Each
her
one
at
of our
all.
theories
Okay.
as it pertains to Missy.
What we think?
Yeah.
Okay, what I think is like basically what I said on Delphi. I don't know. I mean, if I was going to say something, all I will say is it wasn't random. There's a big part of me who wants to say Brandon and Randy did conspire something, and it was brilliant, and they got away with it. And I hate to use the word brilliant because someone lost their life,
right?
And that's a horrible thing. But maybe committed the perfect murder. To me, the coincidence of them both being out of town, and I know earlier I kind of defended that, but you have to,
Right.
because just because they're out of town doesn't mean they hired someone to kill, the wife and the daughter-in-law.
Right.
So, but there's just, I don't know. There's a lot of things that kind of make you want to point your fingers at Brandon and Randy, but there's no evidence.
And that's hard. It's hard to point your finger at somebody when there's no evidence and they don't have like a criminal.
What's her name? Anna?
Annalee.
Ann Lee. Yeah, Ann Lee. My first theory, I really thought I was an angry wife. I thought, when I watched that video, especially that part where like she's prying the door with something, then she turns around and she walks towards the camera. I thought that looks like a girl walking. And I thought, okay, well, what girl would do this? And then I found out about the numerous affairs. And so that's the first thing popped in my head. Okay, we got an angry wife that's pissed off, tried to take her man, break up her family, lose her children in case this guy would hook up with Missy, although that may not have been Missy's intentions at all.
Right.
But that's what I thought. An angry wife, jealous, went in, killed her. But now I don't know. The only thing I can tell you, Anna, is I think it was random. I mean, I don't think it was random. I'm sorry. I don't think it was random. It was too well planned out. The uniform, the guy just really, or girl, covered their tracks. I mean, busting the window, going and driving, wait to see if cops came. So what's your theory?
Well, I just take your theory a little bit further, because in order for that to happen, it would have had to be, I think, financed and even more planned. Like, I think that the planning actually started probably a year before that.
Yeah.
And I really do believe that somebody was hired to do this and to make it look
Now,
like.
do you think it was Randy? Of course. So that would mean
Yes,
you
it
would
would have
believe
to be.
Randy and Brandon was involved in this case.
Man, I hate saying that though.
I know, but I mean, it's.
But I do. No,
But you know what? The cops, they sit around the desk eating.
I know.
Donuts, eating, drinking coffee.
Yep.
And I don't mean that mean or anything, but they're discussing the case and they're looking at every avenue. You know, it always gets me, like when I hear people go, "Oh, it would never be John Smith. He is the nicest person you ever met in the world." You know, okay, well, we have a BTK, president of the church. Everybody liked him. He was,
Right.
a normal guy. So it's like you can't sit there and go, well, it can't be him because he's
can't
such
rule
a
anybody
good
out.
husband.
Right.
You know, because even the daughter wrote a book about BTK. She said he was a wonderful father, took her camping, took her fishing, taught her all this stuff, very loving to her. She said, yeah, every once in a while she would see his temper flare a little bit, but my dad, he had a temper, but he never killed anybody.
Right.
I mean, it's just, he just kind of would get mad sometimes and things would settle down and he was a good father.
Right.
But so you guys, I mean, I hear that a lot in the Delphi case. Well, you shouldn't even think about that person,
Right.
And what did Doug Carter say? He said, I think we're going to be surprised when we find out who this is.
Right.
Or it may have been someone else, but I remember that statement being made.
We're going to be surprised.
So I mean, and that's another thing I wonder about too. Okay, let's go back. Well, not back to Delphi, but okay, on the Missy thing, if they have, some people say, well, you've got one shot at a good conviction because double jeopardy. You can't try him again. So they take that time. They know who it is. They're not announcing it to the public, but they're gathering evidence, getting an ironclad man, all that stuff they need. Does it take that long? Does it take 4 years? I mean, because I would think the main thing I think you would be waiting on is a DNA thing. Eventually, you're going to get that.
Right.
Like, if you're again riding with a sanitation worker, this guy lives, getting his trash, going through snotty rags of spoon, plastics, whatever. But would you think it would take 4 years to gather up a really good case against somebody?
I don't.
That'd be a good question. Ask one of your.
It would be,
buddies.
but in my theory, I don't believe that they have DNA.
Oh, really?
I don't believe they have DNA. Have they said anything about DNA?
Yeah. Well,
and the fact that this person's looks like they're about to walk on the moon.
I know.
So what DNA would have been left?
Yeah, because that's a great point because I have read where there's some groups that said that there is this minute DNA that's not a really good sample.
Yeah. What would it be though?
It would be touch DNA.
Right.
Like something they maybe got skin off of her shirt, something, that's just not a really good DNA sample. I don't know.
It couldn't be a good DNA sample if you look at what the person's wearing and if they didn't really leave anything behind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
If they've never been inside the car, if they don't know what the car is.
Yeah, so I tend to believe with you. Again, the problem with the internet is someone could
There's
say...
a lot of problems with the internet.
Yeah, there's a lot. Especially doing cases like this because all it takes is one guy to just make up some story. He puts it on the internet and people run with it. Right. They think it's fact and all of a sudden... Yeah, and so you're getting this stuff that's just off the wall. And Pam, let me go ahead and ask, what was Tim's question again? Possibility of a stalker
that's actually a good question.
Yes, that would make a lot of sense, Tim.
That would make a lot of sense.
That would also make where he dressed up like he did. Because basically Missy was really active on Facebook. Everybody, she said we're doing this tomorrow. We're doing, it was out there. So if you did have a stalker, very possible. Right. In fact, that's really good, Tim. That might be what I think it might be now.
Well, because the thing about what he's saying is it's a mixture of both. It's a mixture of maybe jealousy or passion. Okay, it's a mixture of planning.
It could have been someone that rejected her.
Right. Or she rejected him.
Right.
Yeah,
she rejected him and he was nuts.
Yeah. So with the stalker theory, that's actually a really good one because then it gets rid of the financial dealings, which is where the hiccup with the hitman part is. Right. Right. It gets rid of all of that. And it just says this is...
Well, it takes Randy and Brandon, all that stuff out of the equation. Now you've got this guy who was obsessed with her. Maybe at some point he was in her class, hit on her. She's like, ew, get away. And that enraged him. And we see that all the time.
I mean, it could be somebody that's never even been rejected or contacted her.
Like who was the celebrity, the female that had... The guy would send her letters constantly. He was in love with her. And then he ended up shooting her. Shooting the door and he just...
Right.
Rebecca Schaefer, yes.
Right.
And then I think was Jodie Foster got a bunch of crazy letters from the guy who shot Reagan. So these guys,
Yeah.
these were definitely dangerous people.
Oh yeah, well, and you hear it all the
So-
time from these celebrities. They get crazy shit all the time.
Yeah, so
you know what I mean.
it's absolutely positive. He's going through her photos, going, "Man, she's really good looking. I bet she'd make a great wife. I bet she'd be great for me."
Well, it could be somebody that's also mentally ill too, that had,
Well, yeah,
that
that's-
never contacted her, but felt like this connection because
That's possible.
it goes back to like the LinkedIn and the Facebook, even the financial and all this stuff, like stuff that we're able to actually tangibly, like things that are tangible that we can track down,
Mm-hmm.
right? This takes almost all of that off the table because sometimes stalkers don't even contact you.
Right.
Social media has created that.
Yeah, that's
Someone commented, someone from Camp Gladiator.
what's that?
Somebody from Camp Gladiator.
Camp Glad. Yeah, absolutely. So
Do you think they vetted all those people though?
I'm sure they questioned every single person in her class. Absolutely. I bet they even went to she went to San Antonio, I think, the week before.
Or Austin?
Austin. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, Austin. I bet they went to Austin, found those people, questioned every one of them.
Right.
There were some of the students saying that she was acting a little weird, like a little standoffish more than she
Interesting.
wasn't her happy self
Right.
for the last few days before she was killed. So, yeah, I'm sure they went and talked to everybody. But if you're taking Tim's theory of being a stalker, let's say he wasn't at Camp Gladiator.
Just follow you on Facebook.
Never find him. But there is a possibility he could have been part of that.
I mean,
So-
we have like 3,000 followers on Facebook for Sports House. A little shout out Sports House Development. Go ahead and follow. No, but we do. And a lot of, I mean, I don't look at Facebook, so I don't know, but I'm assuming like not all 3,000 people, they just like our page.
right.
So there are people out there that do that. And they make that known, like in statements and stuff, that she was she was super into her social media. Like
yeah.
she had a lot of followers
Big
and stuff like
time.
that.
She had-
So
And Tim Bray comments, not just, a man interested in her sexually, but maybe a single white female type stalker. Someone who wants to emulate her, be her.
so
That's getting crazy.
wow. You want to say it? Did you hear what she said?
The guy,
Tim Bray said this.
So obsessed with her that he wanted to become her. Is
No. So like that, it actually might be a white female stalker
Oh, gotcha.
that wants to emulate her,
It'd
like
have been
wants to
better
be
if it
her.
would have been a guy. Then make it even creepier.
Yeah, but that is a good
Like,
point though.
Yeah, white.
Yeah. But you do. I mean, there are cases of that, like where females want to have a baby and they track down somebody that's pregnant. They
Yeah.
follow them around, they befriend them, and then they take the damn baby and kill the lady.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? So
Recently.
yeah.
it did happen recently. Yes,
Yeah, that's
that's
man,
also a good theory. That's why this is important. What we do, Keith.
we keep it up there so people
It's a
think.
discussion,
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, it's very possible. that-
So for all two of you haters out there, this is a discussion. Don't hold our feet to the fire.
0 thumbs down.
There's 0 thumbs down.
yeah, well, now you
There will
say
be
that-
one. No, there will be
now
one.
that you said that, someone's going to go.
I'm
"Watch it.
curious who
Hey,
that
watch
one.
this."
Yeah, I got you. I'm curious who that one thumbs down, because if you look at our video, we always got one. I
Well,
bet it's Cass.
Well, even if there's a thumb down, you know what? It's a view. Thank you.
Boom.
So
No, that's actually a really good theory by Tim Bray. I mean, that's a good thought.
That is,
That's a good
and-
idea.
and also I like Tim Koval's
Right.
stalker. That's a great possibility, which would even make that case even harder to solve.
Which is my
Because
fear.
if he had absolutely, let's say he didn't go to Camp Gladiator, he has no connection with her.
At all.
Probably not, wasn't a Facebook friend, because I'm sure that, God, but could you imagine you had to go through all her friends?
Oh my God, dude.
She probably had thousands, right?
Right.
So-
Yeah. And even that, like tracking them down, trying to pinpoint them, like,
Well, and that kind of leads credence to the crazy text that
from LinkedIn.
LinkedIn
Right.
that she got that was the creepy text.
that they haven't talked about.
They haven't
And-
talked about. They haven't said what it says.
And I pointed out that last episode because that kind of was going to my point in the Delphi thing, where my guy said it's not as easy to track down people on social media as we all think. Like we all think that you'd just be able to sit down on a computer and like track
Yeah.
this down. Like there's hackers are smart, dude.
Well-
like people are growing up with computers, isn't it?
Yeah, and you said-
they're not like me.
And you said chat rooms, he said, was even harder.
Right. Yeah,
To-
or something that's not from United
Say
States.
it came from the Philippines or
Right,
something.
right, yeah.
Harder to trace
It gets
that
harder and
stuff
harder.
down.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, and also one thing I was going to bring up, Garrett has made maybe a contact
Yes.
with a man that was a police officer in Los Angeles. He came here and became a homicide detective for how many years?
Well, he was a police officer here for 25 years, and I'm not sure how long he was a homicide detective, but it was at the end of his career, and it was for a significant amount of time. Like the guy, and let me just go ahead and say this right now. I have a lot of police officer friends.
Yeah.
Okay, I train their kids, and I was telling my friend last night, like every single one of them that I come in contact with, they're like the best dudes. And I know that's not the case. There's bad apples, right? But I just wanted to point that out because the police officers I'm dealing with are like really awesome people.
Yeah.
And so whenever he told me about this guy, and my friend's sitting there saying, this guy's an OG. Like this guy has been like, he's like the guy you look up to, right? Like when you first get on the force, everybody knows about him.
Right.
It immediately got my attention.
Yeah, and that would be awesome because then if we have a case, like we could actually go back to Delphi, kind of give him some information and have him to look at the bridge guy and maybe give his opinion. And I hope, dude, he's one of those guys with a cigar that says you guys are idiots.
Yeah.
You know, he's old school. Like,
Well, he told me, my friend told me, he said he's like, everybody's like scared of him. Like he looks like hard as he's just like hard as shit, you know.
Yeah, because I want to imagine him chewing on a cigar.
Yeah,
has a beer. He's angry.
Well, what's even better about this too is like once he retired, he actually worked cold cases in our county.
Oh wow!
For a long period of time.
Yeah,
which I think is like when I told Cass last night, I was like, I think that's like the coolest thing about all of it is that we're working on. I hate to call them cold cases.
Yeah,
but can we agree that the Missy Bevers case is a bit cold?
It's cold
per the public.
And I know people get mad about that because they say, "Well, don't let the family know that." I mean, come on. Do you think the family doesn't know it's cold?
Yeah.
I mean, even Carrie Timmons, who's with Delphi, one of the parents,
right?
She's been on criticizing the police, saying it is a cold case. No, there's no arrest been made. So I really don't have a problem saying things are cold because if there's no arrest and it's after we're going in 5 years on Delphi, it's
4 years on Missy,
5 years on Missy, 4 years on Delphi, and there's not been arrests. I mean, and when I say cold, that doesn't mean
it's not a bad thing.
No. Well, I think what people think we're saying is that the detectives have stopped working.
Not
on
at all.
And that's not the case. It's just they're still following up leads, I'm sure. And
and furthermore, they like a lot of these counties, like where we live, they have cold case units. They have guys because you were saying last night, you're like the great thing about some of these detectives is like that's like their DNA. So like whenever they retire, like it's still a part of them. And like my friend was saying, he's like, you want to spot a cop, you can spot a cop. Like, by the way they act, by the way they live, it's like their livelihood. And so there are these units that are alive and well, and these are some eager dudes with a lot of time under their belt. Like what I do, it's all about time under the belt. Okay, you got to get time under your belt, and then you get good when you're like 16 or 17 as a player, right?
Right.
The same thing with these detectives, right? So these guys have time under their belt, and they're part of cold case units. So whenever we say something's cold, it's not a derogatory thing at all. I mean, what's happening is other crimes are occurring, and they have to focus on that. It gets moved to these other detectives that are more than willing and more than able to take care of them. So,
I think they do what they call fresh eyes.
Right.
Yeah. Right. After 4 or 5 years, they give it to another group of detectives and say, "Hey,
put some fresh eyes.
Take a look, see if we missed something."
And oftentimes they do.
So when I'm saying cold case, what I mean by cold case, I mean there has not been an arrest, a conviction,
on
this case.
We're not saying there's no movement.
I'm not saying that the detectives are lazy, and not at all. I mean, I'm sure because they get credit for if they solve that, they're going to be proud of themselves, and they should be.
Yeah, and you almost always hear on the first 48, dude. They should put me on the commercial. No, but they're always like, man, it's because they have to call the family, dude.
Oh, I know.
Can you imagine that? Can you imagine being like, hey, calling up a mom or a dad or like next of kin and telling them what just happened?
Yeah,
and having to bring them in and like that connection you would feel for them. And so like whenever we say cold, we're not talking like the detectives are lazy by any means or negligent or anything. No. We're saying that this thing's still active, but for us it is because nobody's been caught yet. So
yeah. So Yeah, I don't know, man.
Well, we've gotten a little bit of pushback on that. That's why
we
I
have,
wanted,
and that's the reason we brought that up, because I did get a couple of comments going,
It's not cold.
It's not a cold case. It's like, well, it
to
is.
us it is in Oklahoma.
It is, yeah.
Like, you know.
It's cold. Sorry, and even the family members know that, but that doesn't mean the detectives are working hard as hell on these cases.
Right.
So I don't mean anything against law enforcement when I say that. I'm
No,
just saying
yeah.
that they haven't found enough evidence.
Or the families.
Yeah, they haven't found enough evidence
Right.
to convict somebody yet. And again, maybe I don't know. I'm not a detective. Maybe it takes 4 years to build up a good case on somebody, but I would think it would be less than that. But DNA to me would be the thing that would hold you back, because
Right.
that's so definite.
Right, right. Nowadays,
Getting
for
the DNA,
sure.
right.
Well, and then the detectives also have to. They don't only have to like build the case and against somebody, a suspect, but then they have to get it passed through like the DA.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then the DA.
Then
right,
you got to get a judge to sign a warrant.
Right, and so I mean, it's a huge process.
Yeah, I even do a search warrant. I was listening to this guy who's a prosecutor, and he said, "You guys have no idea. Judges take that very seriously. About, okay, I'm sending people in to disrupt your home, to go through your home, looking through your private stuff to find evidence. This is
in America,
right? This is very
Right.
serious to me,
which we take
I'm
our
not-
privacy very
right.
like.
So he said these judges just don't willy nilly sign warrants and go, hey, go.
Yeah.
He said he said, man, he goes, a lot of times he goes, man, we have what we think is great evidence for a search warrant. He goes, we give it to the judge, and judge says, nope,
Yep.
not enough. I need more.
Right.
And because
Which is fair.
Well, no, I was glad to hear that, because
Yeah.
it's like they actually were concerned with saying, this is huge when you send a bunch of people into a family's house and you start going through everything that they own.
It's traumatizing, man.
Yeah.
Can you imagine being a kid and
Yeah.
getting shuffled out?
Yeah.
But let me look at the camera when I say this. Checks and balances. They work and they're in place. If everything
Right.
goes as
Everything's going to have a few bad apples. You're going to have
For sure.
You're going to have judges that are,
100%.
you're going to have bad apples. I mean, at where I work, there's some bad apples.
Yeah.
I mean,
where I work, there's no bad apples.
Yeah, right. No. Well, maybe not. You got a pretty good crew.
Yeah, but there are though. Like even when I was in the Army, tons of bad apples.
Yeah. Oh, I can
A
imagine.
lot of really good apples, but there's a percentage that are
Yeah.
really bad apples. And so, I mean,
you find that everywhere you go.
right? Yeah,
It's just
so-
normal, but it's not the upper percent. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Oh, for sure.
They're like exactly like when he's talking about that judge. I thought that's a great judge.
Yes,
Because
yes.
he's not just going to let you, oh, yeah, go
Yeah.
ahead, I'll sign this. Yeah.
Well, he's doing his job.
He's doing his
He's
job.
protecting the people.
Right.
And that's what we're supposed to be doing, right?
Right.
Whereas a detective's job is also to protect the people.
Yeah.
To take somebody off the streets, but everybody's got somebody else leaning on them.
Yeah. And the prosecutors say it's frustrating for them sometimes, because they go, man, I know this guy did
I know,
it,
I
but
know,
the
yeah.
judge won't sign off on the warrant.
Right. Well, and
And-
sometimes it's frustrating for the detectives who are like, I think this is enough to go in and like we have these Facebook pictures of him holding this gun and he's got a record and
Yeah.
and the prosecutor's
Well,
like, no, I need more.
Going back to the Zodiac case, that Arthur Lee Allen, he after he committed those crimes, he wore a Zodiac watch. He had the same size of boot prints that were found at the
Jeez.
crime scene, and the detective was like, please let us, he lived in a trailer, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, please, and the judge would not sign off on a warrant. It took that detective or investigator, I think it was 2 years before the judge, and by that time he's thrown everything away by now.
Yes.
But they went ahead and searched, and of course they found nothing.
Well, it's like we were talking about earlier. For any of you who haven't seen The Night Stalker on Netflix yet, I was just telling
I'm
Keith
so
about
gonna
it.
watch that.
My brother texted me at 10:30 last night and said Night Stalker like equals creepy. And when my brother
Yeah.
is a huge horror fan, so when he's creeped out, I was like, oh, look at it. I wasn't aware of it. I recognized some of the pictures of Richard Ramirez once it kind of like, and I'm not gonna
I can't believe you're not. That's one of the most notorious cases in L.A.
Man, but what's great about the show, and I'm not going to like give anything away for those of you who don't know about the case, but what's great about the show is it's all about the two detectives that followed him for like 6 months on this rampage.
Yeah.
And like the toll it took on their families, the toll it took on them, how they handled it differently,
Right.
how they were trying to get evidence, what would happen if political officials or other people would leak evidence, how that would interrupt the case.
Well, and let's also let the viewers know about, they complain a lot, and we do too, about why won't they release more evidence? Well, tell them the story about the shoes.
Yeah, so they had a shoe, okay, and it was called an Avion, I believe.
Aviator or something.
No, it's like an Avia or
okay.
Avion, okay, and it was imported from another country, and so I think they
they got that from a shoe print outside the window.
Multiple shoe prints.
Yeah, multiple shoe prints.
Because there was like 30 up to 35 assaults.
Right.
And sometimes he would like in one instance, he killed. So a girl's like down, putting groceries in, right?
Yeah.
He's up above the counter. He, instead of just murdering her right there, he waits for her to come up. He makes a noise. So she comes up and then he sees her face and he shoots her in the head. Okay. Then the roommate's coming in, right? He sees her, points his gun, shoots it, and it ricochets off her necklace.
Okay.
And she lives. So she's thinking, he's over here, I'm going to run out the garage. By the time she runs out the garage, he was already there. He's pointing his gun at her, and she goes, please don't do it. And she didn't have any fear, and he put the gun down and left. Because what he got his kicks was seeing the fear in their faces. Right,
but get back to the shoe print.
Okay, so really fast. So in every case, it was just completely random cases, but in every single one, from kid assault to adults to 80-year-olds, 15-year-olds, there was always this one shoe print. And it was like a bigger size shoe print, and they matched it, and they're like, wow, only 9 of these were sold to the West Coast, right? And then they're like, oh, only 4 of them were sold in L.A. And so then these crimes started happening in another city, up in San Francisco. Okay, so they go up to San Francisco that day, and they're like, "Oh shit, there's a footprint. There's footprints there," and they say, "Okay, we need to like let the public know some things." And so the mayor goes on and says something about they didn't want them to know about the footprint. They didn't want them to know about the writing on the wall. But some cop that was just like down the street from the murder, reporter comes up, and the cop goes, "Oh yeah, there's some writing on the wall like the cases in L.A." Reporter's like, oh, I didn't know that. Thank you for telling me.
Yep.
Puts it out there. And these investigators are like, I don't want them to know about the right. I don't want them to know about the shoe print. They never found the shoes again.
Right, because as soon as they announced that on TV, Richard Ramirez bought a new pair of shoes.
Yeah.
So
well, and the other thing
now you've got to try to connect these future killings.
Oh God.
With those killings.
Right. Well, and the thing that like the main detective was saying was like, he thought that the case literally was done at that point. He's like, we're never gonna find this guy unless, and he's like, he said this openly to his partner. I hate to say this, but he's got to commit another murder.
Yeah.
He's got to keep killing. Because the only way we're going to catch him is when he makes a mistake, and that's what he ultimately did.
Yeah. So that's a reason. Like a lot of times, law enforcement won't give you evidence because they don't want the perpetrator to know that they know this about them, so that they don't change. So going to the bridge guy, if they say they know exactly what shoes or whatever he has,
right? If
he kills again and they see that print or they see whatever same evidence, then they know. Case connected, right,
and we don't know,
right. But if the press starts going out and just spewing out everything they know,
he's gonna change.
Then he's getting rid of that stuff.
Well, because we talked about with the Delphi thing, we went down like if it's a serial killer, their number one mission is to continue to feed their craving.
Yeah.
So once they find out that they've got information, they're gonna change tactics.
Oh, absolutely.
They're obsessive about
100%.
it. 100%.
100%. All right. Well, Garrett, it's 9:00.
Good stuff, man.
So
told you it'd be 2 hours.
Yeah. So anyway, we will do and again, I say this every show for the paranormal people. I promise. I am working on getting a paranormal investigator on. I know for you true crime people that may not be interesting, but you should watch anyway. It's pretty.
Yeah.
Actually, it is very interesting.
It's awesome.
So there's
amazing.
There's one I'm talking to, trying to get them on. So I'm going to try to maybe get them on next week. And
cool.
We will do a paranormal show, but also it's going to be pretty much true crime and paranormal. And like Garrett said, I'm probably going to spend a month on the Manson thing. I mean, not with you guys, but doing refreshing. I know all about this stuff, but I need to refresh my memory about a lot of the facts, dates, things like that, people involved, and maybe see if I can also find. You know what would be awesome if that that guy moved here in the 70s. If he was on the LAPD in the late 60s, he knew about the Manson crime.
Oh, of course.
And maybe he could even come on and tell us some stuff that.
Well, and if you were a cop in the 70s and that was going on, wouldn't she be following it anyways?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
And coming from LA to like.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think it'll be good.
Yeah. So I hope you need to talk to this guy soon.
I'm working on it.
And make sure he has a cigar and a fedora. And
Yeah,
he
I will.
talks.
Okay. I'll see what I can do.
These guys are idiots. Listen
I'm
to
like,
me.
I'm like my father-in-law / business partner / co-host is very specific.
Yeah.
Can you please bring a cigar and a fedora?
Yeah, exactly. I got to have that.
And a trench coat.
Right. So anyway, next week should be a paranormal investigator interview. And me and Garrett are going to pick another case. We'll announce that to you guys, what it's going to be. So we want to thank everybody for being in the chat room. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to like, subscribe, share, and let's make a big community out of this and have some really good, interesting conversation. All right. So, guys.
Love you guys.
Love you guys. Good.
Like and subscribe.
Yes, right. From the high plains of the Midwest, I bid you good.